Good afternoon, everyone. This is episode 9 of The Entertainment Room, and joining me today is Jacob Ottaway, and Macaulay Moffat has returned to us. And there is a very special episode because we have a producer in the form of Harry Petit.
Hello, everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, so our levels are going to be good today. Right, so I think we all know what the main topic of today is going to be. It's been a very special occasion last week, and it was the end of Game of Thrones.
The end of Game of Thrones after 8 years, eight seasons. I mean, I was fairly new to it. I only started watching it 2 months ago. I can't imagine what it's like for you guys who've been watching it.
I started midway
years.
through season 4. No one else was watching it in my school. I was trying to get all my friends into it. And yeah, I've been a big fan ever since.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation. I started watching it in season 4, start of season 4, I think. So I had to catch up on the Red Wedding, and it made me really, really sad.
Catching up on the Red Wedding. I remember that. And funnily enough, my mum, that's the first episode she watched with me. She's like, oh, what are you watching? And I was like, oh, Game of Thrones. Oh, I'll watch an episode. So the first ever episode she got to watch, spoiler, basically half the Starks being cut at the throat. So yeah, she was put off that.
Jacob, did you see that coming?
Honestly, no, I didn't. I remember watching the first season, though, and, you asking me before episode 10, season 1, who's your favourite character? Oh, I like Ned Stark, I do. Oh, I made a mistake there.
Yeah. So, what did you think, guys? Starting with Mac.
I'd rather not start with me, because I have differing opinions to you, and it seems everyone on planet Earth. So, Jacob, start. Well, you didn't like it.
Right, okay. Now, first of all, the actors were brilliant. Every single one was brilliant. Even Hot Dog, or whatever his name was.
Hot Pie.
Hot Pie. Even he
Hot
was
Dog?
brilliant.
Yeah.
Even he was brilliant. Cinematography, brilliant. Daenerys with the wings of the Drogon behind her. Wow, brilliant cinematography. Soundtrack, Ramin Djawadi, brilliant. I want to see him live. The writing by D&D. And in the final episode, before the final episode, I was fairly, happy, and I didn't understand why everyone was getting so upset about the writing. And then came the final episode, and it hit me all during the episode. First of all, with the writing, there was just so many things that were left out which could have been useful to the, the story. I mean, did we just forget that Jon was a Targaryen? What happened to the Dothraki? Are you really telling me the Unsullied would just go away like that? Let's choose a new king and just forget that Jon Snow really should be the king. Oh, wait, Tyrion's a prisoner, but now he can just choose who the king is. And Bran's a king? I just feel there's so many sort of story holes and issues there which don't sit right with me. I guess it was a fitting end in some regards. Most people were upset with the death scene of Daenerys. I didn't really have a problem with that. I think that was jolly good. But, it's just left me slightly disappointed. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Mac.
No, I thought the finale was actually alright, honestly, looking back on it. I know a lot of people are upset about it, and for a good reason. However, I could probably argue till the day's end why I liked it. So to argue directly some of Jacob's points, the cinematography and the soundtrack were amazing. The writing all season has been a bit iffy, but like I said, this wasn't the worst episode we got all season. There's been worse ones that people were more impressed with than this one, which actually wasn't that bad. I think this was just a lot of people getting angry for the whole season and taking it all out on the final episode. So not you personally, Jacob, but I've seen a lot of people online saying it was a happy ending. Jon got banished to the Night's Watch, which, by the way, are irrelevant now, but I won't get into that. He got banished, and he had to kill the woman he loved. Like, if you're thinking that's a happy ending, I don't really understand what determines as a happy. Arya just left, which I actually like. I don't think there was much left for her to do here. I like how the North is liberated as its own kingdom. And as for Bran being king, well, my argument to why they didn't pick Jon is because literally Grey Worm and the Unsullied that were left would have slaughtered everyone because they didn't want him to be king. And Davos, as he said, was sick of all the fighting. Otherwise, we'd have another 10 seasons of nonsense fighting. And Davos and me was basically like, can we stop this? So they basically mutually agreed to choose a king. Maybe it shouldn't have been Tyrion that chose, but I'm quite happy with Bran because he is probably more stable than a lot of people that they would have been as king. Shout out to Robert Aaron for the biggest glow up of 2019.
He really Neville Longbottom there.
He's looking good now. But no, I didn't find it that bad. I liked how the Starks ended. All the final cut together was amazing. Daenerys' death scene was good. Drogon obviously took her away. I don't know where, but the thing is, they can't really answer all the questions in 6 episodes. So if you look that deep into it, you could ask so many questions about every episode, you know. And I feel if we had a longer season, it would have been fleshed out a bit more, and we would have enjoyed it more. I loved the scene at the end with the High Council. Bronn is great. Sam's now the obviously what do you call Sam's
Grand Maester, even though he's not a Maester.
See, I think they're past the point of caring about all that lore and stuff, because if they were, then the seasons could go on and on and on. But I liked Bran being king. I thought I'd actually be a lot more annoyed about it than I was. I didn't want it to be Sansa. If it was Sansa, I would have been very upset. And yeah, I think maybe it should have been Jon, but then it's almost like Grey Worm and all the Dothraki that, by the way, shouldn't have been there. So you can't get angry about the Dothraki because they all died in the Long Night, and then suddenly they all came back again. They just respawned. I don't really understand. So, you know, they wouldn't have taken it. You know, if they would have made Jon king, they might have rebelled and it might have started all over again, which it might. But it's supposed to end on a situation where we can kind of understand that it's going to stay that way for a while, and Bran will be king for a while. Hopefully it'll be stable for a while, but it's about rebuilding. They discuss that in the council at the end. And personally, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, you could probably say anything you didn't like, and I'll probably say why I liked it, but I didn't think it was that bad, and I didn't think it was the worst episode of the season. I think there was much, much poorer episodes this season.
And I have a mixed opinion. So, so the things I did like, the cinematography was gorgeous, apart from towards the end of the episode, because I noticed, especially when they went north, was when the part where I most noticed this was that the lighting was a bit dodgy, because usually when they film in the north and when they film in Croatia and stuff, it's like on location, and it obviously wasn't on location this time. They were clearly in a set, because you could see how glowed up their faces were, especially in the north, when usually it's all like gritty, which is the only thing I didn't like about cinematography. Obviously, you had that one shot where Dany gets off Drogon and his wings like kind of like open up behind her and she's like become the dragon. That was phenomenal. The season 8 soundtrack has been absolutely amazing. That's on Spotify now, by the way. I think it came on Spotify right after the episode had aired. I thoroughly recommend listening through that. Ramin Djawadi is like huge. He's hugely underappreciated considering how much he's done for the show. Like, the show would not have been the same without that score.
I was going to say the soundtrack as well. So many big names and artists have contributed their time to that, so I really think that will help Ramin get the recognition he deserves, because I know Muse are on there. Florence and the
That's
Machine.
not the official soundtrack,
but
no.
I feel that coming from that as well, because I know that there's been that will help draw attention towards Ramin.
There was an album before the season aired called For the Throne, and that's not an official album for the soundtrack. That is a album inspired by the show. So loads of artists collaborated on this. You've got Florence and the Machine, Matt Bellamy,
Serge Tankian.
You've got loads of rappers who I don't know.
The Weeknd did a song with Kendrick Lamar.
Mumford & Sons did too.
The National did a really good one.
So yeah, no, that was good. I'm a fan of The Weeknd and Kendrick, so I like their song.
Actually, no, it wasn't the National. It was the Lumineers. I particularly like their song. So yeah, you had that, but Ramin Djawadi, like, he's done absolute wonders this season. I think I would have like hated it a lot more had he not done such a good job. Anyway, yeah, moving on, you've got the actors have done an absolutely amazing performance. Even Emilia Clarke, who all the way through her portrayal of Daenerys, people have been saying she's not a good actress, she doesn't do very well with being in a leadership role. But even I think even those people can agree that Emilia Clarke really pulled through this season. She did an absolutely amazing job. And of course, we've got the writing. I have no problem with where the show ended, with where the characters end up, with Jon north of the wall, Bran on the throne, Sansa Queen of the North, and Arya going west of Westeros to Westworld. I have no problem with that. My problem was with how they got there and how rushed the writing has been, which is actually the writers' fault. They were offered 10 episodes for the last 2 seasons, so 10 episodes for season 7 and 10 episodes for season 8, and they declined. They said, no, we can wrap this up in 14 episodes. And so they thought. They really could not. I didn't have that much of a problem with it until the other day when I was watching scenes from like previous episodes. You know, just like all those moments where certain characters will meet up and talk to each other. Like, you thought that scene where Cersei and Littlefinger have this little play on power conversation. It's just like those little scenes such as that, which this episode really missed. You even had those scenes in season 7 where certain characters would just have this, like, you know, just a conversation like normal people, whereas season 8 just like was lacking that kind of personal touch. Like Daenerys' death felt really like rushed through compared to other deaths in the previous seasons. Like, even deaths of like minor characters in previous seasons were quite good. Like, you know, Oberyn Martell, he was only in it for a few episodes, yet his death is probably like the most remembered for me. Olenna Tyrell, like, she really left a lasting impression. Like, when she died, I was really upset, but when Daenerys died, I just thought, okay.
I feel with that scene, the writers thought that they could save it by having "You will always be my queen." I felt they thought that line would help with the significance of the death.
Yeah.
It did, but not as much as I'd like it to.
They used Drogon's reaction to make it a bit more emotionally impacting. I think she should have had some last words, like maybe while she was dying, like a sudden realisation that, okay, so I might have messed up. Might have made a mistake there, burning the city to the ground.
Unpopular opinion. I actually liked her dying and saying nothing, because it's almost like she didn't have anything to say. You know, not only has she been killed by the person she loved. You know, when she was talking to Jon about how she was excited for the future and ready to liberate everyone, she truly believed what she was doing was right, and I think she believed that until she died. So, you know, I think she's more shocked at the fact that she knows, maybe she knew why Jon did it, but she's more shocked, and maybe she, you know, I thought, honestly, my biggest gripe with it was how quickly she died, but then I realised she got stabbed in the heart. I thought she got stabbed in the stomach, and then the whole scene with Drogon burning the throne, I thought that was a good ending, mainly because probably Bran couldn't have actually got to the throne because there were steps in the way, so I thought he had to do that anyway.
I really love that scene where Drogon destroys the throne.
Yeah, I think out of everything, though, ironically enough, my favourite scene was when Jon pet Ghost, because Ghost deserves all the recognition in the world. Poor Ghost with his ear missing and all the stuff he's gone through, he deserves everything.
I was watching some of the commentaries the other day where the actors just, watched the episodes for the first time, and even in season 7 during the Dragon Pit scene, Kit Harington is like, "Where's Ghost?"
Yeah, I know, even he didn't really understand, but
yeah.
No, I actually wasn't that upset with the final episode. I thought it ended really well. That's how I wanted it to end. I understand what you're saying, just obviously about the little speeches, and I do think we needed more episodes, but I kind of had to tell myself to look past that and realise, with 6 episodes, I don't think the writers could have done it much better.
Yeah.
I think of all the things happening in the season, I think the Night King deserved better. I think he literally came and did nothing and died in one episode, and I was really underwhelmed by that. And that was my biggest upset of the season, was that the Night King wasn't the big bad. He lasted longer than Cersei, and Cersei did nothing but stand in a window and then die. And speaking of that, when Tyrion found their bodies, you're telling me if they stepped 2 feet to the left, they would have survived because...
there was a load of rubble, then you just go a metre away and there's no
I don't really understand, because they looked at the middle, the whole building collapsed, yet it clearly only collapsed in piles. But that scene was really good. I understand why they kept it in,
Maybe
obviously,
they
for
ran
Tyrion,
out of bricks on set.
Well, I don't really understand it, but I mean, it was gutting because Tyrion got in there so easily when they were trying to escape. And that was pretty my big... I was standing there a bit confused, like, why? Like, what? Could they just stood under the archway and, survived?
Yeah.
But I liked it for emotional value. But, no, I really didn't have that much of an issue with the final episode, and I'm just sad to see it go, because I would have liked to have seen maybe 2 lots of 10 in the final 2 series, just to make it out. I feel like it would have been better, but no, I didn't have that much.
I think they could have even done this with another season. I think George R. R. Martin's been saying for ages it could have done 10 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree. I think maybe the season 8 should have been no. What are we on now? Season
8.
Yeah, we are on season 8. Okay, no, I think there should have been 9 seasons. I think season 8 should have been the build up to the Long Night, ending off with the killing of the Night King. And then season 9 should have been the build-up to the Mad Queen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jacob. I was going to say, I do want to point out, though, that despite the sort of rushing of the past season, and maybe the past 2 seasons, there's no removing the fact that no matter what happens now, this has been one of the greatest, if not the greatest, TV series of all time. There's no removing that. It's been simply remarkable, and the one thing, obviously, we're all going to miss it. I really want to see where all the actors go. Obviously, some actors were already established, but all of the actors in this can go on and do huge things, and I really, really want to see that. I mean, we've seen obviously Sophie Turner. She's starring in, I've forgotten the name of the film.
Dark Phoenix.
Thank you, and it looks really jolly good. And yeah, they're all going to go on to amazing, amazing things. The one thing that I want to see is whether anything comes off Game of Thrones, whether this prelogue will come. I don't know if it's in the running order for later on, but I know that What's West of Westeros, unfortunately, is not going to be turned into a series. HBO have ruled that out, which is a shame, because I'd love to see Arya Stark just tearing around the West.
So even Breaking Bad didn't get this kind of like this kind of like following. Breaking Bad, which in my opinion is still the best TV show of all time, but it never aired in the UK, so you didn't have like all these people gathering around a TV set to watch like the finale. So yeah, it's definitely had that kind of impact, and with where it's going to go from now, I wasn't actually that interested in the Long Night prequel, because I was a bit bitter over the fact that you've got so much lore in the books and they've decided to go back to the Long Night, even though we've already seen what the Night King's origins. I don't think it needs to be spoon-fed any further. But then I found out that George R.R. Martin is going to be the main writer for it, which has immediately sparked my interest.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting. There are going to be 5 spin-offs. They've signed up for 5. We only know what one's going to be set on, and that's the Long Night. I'm really hoping the remaining 4 we're going to at least maybe get A Dance of Dragons, which is the story of how the dragons went extinct. Maybe something set in Valyria, because we barely know anything about Valyria, which is in the books is said to be like one of the greatest empire that ever existed, and that's where the Targaryens came from. I'm hoping we don't get anything on Robert's Rebellion, because actually the whole books are on Robert's Rebellion and the after effects of it, so I just don't think we need to spell it out any further. But yeah, we're not. The writers of HBO have made it very clear there's not going to be any sequels. So we're not going to get What's West of Westeros. We're not going to get anything and no character spin-offs unless it's a prequel to their journey. We're not going to get any of that.
And that's a shame, because we've all got such an attachment to these characters.
I mean, I kind of agree with it. Like, I want it to. I don't want it to be milked. I just want it to finish there with those characters, and maybe because the lore does deserve some credit. Like the world George has built is absolutely amazing for just one guy and his imagination. Like you've got this area called the Shadowlands, which is where the dragon eggs came from, and that's like very far east of Westeros, and that's so magical. Like people who have gone in there have never come out. And Melisandre actually went in there, and it's presumed that's where the Red Priestesses get their power from. But yeah, who knows?
Go on.
I'm going to move on from Game of Thrones just because we've got so much to talk about today.
I was just going to ask very, very quickly, if you can, your favourite episode of all time before we move on.
Of Game of Thrones or of any TV?
Game of Thrones.
My favourite episode of Game of Thrones, I might have to have a quick think and come back to me. Anyone else?
Oh, I'm going to go Hard Home.
Hard Home. I'm tempted to say Red Wedding.
Without any thought, if I had to have a proper think, I could maybe change it, but this isn't a swear word. The Battle of the Bastards. For me, personally, I think that just everything that happened in that episode was fantastic. I thought it's either that, Hard Home's up there, Battle of Blackwater is also up there, but for me, that one did stand above the rest.
I liked Hard Home just because it was so unexpected. Like, there was no build up towards it. They just went, and we had this 15-minute battle of just sheer horror, because we realised, hold on, we've been bickering over politics and we've got the zombie apocalypse coming over.
No, yeah, I agree. That is also up there for me.
So like Jess said, it is time to move on. And I believe we move on to Rick and Morty now. I didn't know about this before we started the podcast, and I love Rick and Morty, so I really hope that this is good news.
Yeah, it is really good news, because ages ago it was renewed for 70 more episodes, but we didn't hear anything about it, even though the writer said the seasons are going to come quicker. This has actually been the longest gap between a season of Rick and Morty, maybe because they're preparing for these 70 new episodes. But yeah, it's been announced that it's returning November 2019, and it's going to be season 4, which I'm really looking forward to.
And what platform is that going to be on again? Is that going to be on?
It's a Netflix.
It's a Netflix
show, so it'll be on there.
Really can't wait for that. Do you watch Rick and Morty?
I don't actually, no. I don't know if it's on the run order, but in another Netflix show I was looking forward to was Black Mirror.
Oh yeah.
We could talk about that in a minute, but no, I'm not. I haven't watched Rick and Morty, although I've heard so much about it, and I think I probably should dedicate some time to it.
Yeah, I don't find it laugh out loud funny like South Park, but I find it like it's just really enjoyable. It's loads of fun, and there's so much It's like a surprising amount of creativity behind the writing because like all the stories are like really unique and.
There's a lot of dark humour in there,
Yeah.
but like the relationship between Rick and Morty is quite pleasant in a way.
Yeah, it's got like a surprisingly good. It's got surprisingly good, not just comedic writing, but just like storyline in general writing for a cartoon show.
I was going to say, if you're going to watch Rick and Morty, Mac, Rick is like me, but drunk. So yeah, you'd really enjoy that. I was going to say, before we move on though, because obviously we talked about it last week, Black Mirror season 5, and we had Ruby voice her opinion on it. Ruby will turn soon, but Mac, I didn't know you liked Black Mirror.
I love Black Mirror. I think it's one of those series that I actually got into quite late, but from episode 1, which by the way was considered one of the worst episodes, with the Prime Minister and the pig. If you haven't seen it,
Yeah, I can't watch it again.
that episode scarred me. But then again, what I love about it is it's realistic in the terms that it's what technology can become if we're not careful, and I love it. The amount of time and effort they dedicate to creating different stories, and I really like the realistic ones. So I don't know how many episodes you've seen, Jess, or anyone here has seen, but a couple of episodes that stand out to me. One was about like virtual reality, VR gaming, and this guy tests out this headset. I'm not going to spoil it. That was really good because VR is already a thing, and you could see things like that happening in the future. Another one was when this boy gets blackmailed for an entire episode because of something that leaks about him online. That was really good because blackmail on social media is really, really bad. I've seen one where this woman tries to boost her ratings up. That one was amazing, and none of them have happy endings, which is something that
Apart from there's 2 episodes I've got happy endings, but I'm not going to tell you which ones because you're just going to have to watch for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, quote me on it. Most of them aren't happy endings, and I love that because. Not everything has a happy ending, and with technology nowadays it isn't always the case. I'm sad there's only 3 episodes in season 5, but back in season 1 there was only 3 episodes and they were all good.
Yeah.
So it looks like they've dedicated a lot of time to this, and the actors that are always in it, by the way, are really excellent. Anthony Mackie is in one of them. You've got Miley Cyrus in one of them as well.
Yeah.
Andrew Scott as well, who played Moriarty in Sherlock. I always see Moriarty when I see him. That episode looks fantastic, and I can't wait. I'm really excited.
So there we go, Black Mirror, it's coming soon. Now, we were talking about dragons with Game of Thrones. We can't escape dragons, because there's something called Eyes of the Dragon, which Jess knows about.
Yeah, this is Hulu's attempt at Game of Thrones. Amazon's going to be doing Lord of the Rings, and now Hulu's trying to do Game of Thrones. It's a Stephen King adaptation of a Stephen King book. I'm not going to talk about it that much, because I haven't actually read the book, but I thought it would just be worth noting, because Game of Thrones is ending. It was written in 1984, and it's about 2 brothers struggling for the control of the Kingdom of Delane.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm just going to leave it there because, I'm trying to find another fantasy epic to watch now to fill my Game of Thrones void, but...
Vikings
Yeah.
is so good. I would recommend Vikings to anyone.
Yeah, I've just got Amazon Prime, so...
Vikings is very good. It's got the same battles as Game of Thrones. It's just obviously not as fantasy. It doesn't have flying dragons everywhere, but the story is amazing.
So you may want to cancel your HBO subscription to get a Hulu or an Amazon Prime, but you might not want to yet, because there's something very big, almost as big as Game of Thrones, coming back to HBO. Now, this thing coming back to HBO is Westworld. I had the joy of watching some of season 1. I need to watch it all the way through. Jess is a bit more of a die-hard follower of Westworld. She's very excited for this to come back.
Well played, HBO, well played. So everyone was talking about cancelling their HBO subscription, then as soon as Game of Thrones had finished airing, they released a trailer for season 3 of Westworld.
Geniuses.
Yeah, absolute genius. They must have sat around the table with that. They were like, we've got to bring them back. Westworld, I cannot recommend Westworld enough. The first season of Westworld is probably one of the most well-written pieces of television I've ever watched. It's got absolutely phenomenal cast. It's got Evan Rachel Wood. It's got Anthony Hopkins, Tessa Thompson, the guy who plays Cyclops, can't remember his name, but he was the 3rd Hemsworth brother. Luke Hemsworth, that's it. You've got... I can't remember anybody else, but it's got an amazing cast, and it's written by Jonathan Nolan, who Christopher Nolan's brother, who's often collaborated with Christopher Nolan to write all his films. So he was the one who helps him write Inception, Man of Steel, a few others. I think he might have helped out with The Prestige as well. And yeah, it's just absolutely brilliant, and season 3 is coming out. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys in case you decide you want to watch Westworld, which I highly recommend.
It is on my to-watch list. I've heard a lot of good things.
I was going to say, funnily enough for me, my film teacher in college, a guy called Ross, a lovely guy, but for our film project, he made us watch episode 1, 2 and 6.
That is evil.
That is evil. He's got a curly moustache as well, so it's like the definition of evil. Lovely bloke, but I can't believe he made us watch episode 1, 2 and 6. So I will have to go back and watch them definitely.
So to talk a little bit about Westworld, it's based on the book by the same guy who wrote Jurassic Park. This guy's got a bit of a fear of theme parks, I think. So it's based in a theme park where it's kind of like a virtual reality. So guests will go there. Have you ever been to the Black Country Museum?
No.
It's a bit same concept where you go there and it's kind of like set up like a historic place. I think there's several parks, and this one's on Westworld, which is based on Western times. So you've got this like whole area where you go to and you can just like explore it, and you've got androids which will play certain characters. So it's a bit like playing a game, only in like, I imagine this would be what 5D would be like. And basically the story is that these androids that play these characters, they've started to become self-aware, and some of them have even started to wake up from this kind of like programming that they've been programmed to do. And they rebel. And
the rebellion is really jolly good. So if you like rebellions, androids, sci-fi, cowboys, there's lots to come. There's lots to attract you to this series. So it's definitely worth watching. Is there a date for when season 3 will be starting? Do we know?
It's said 2020, so sometime next year.
Not far away. We move on to the world of games, and there's a very popular video game which has apparently got some things going on. The Last of Us Part 2.
It's entering the final stages of development. So Naughty Dog posted something on Twitter saying they are now hiring new talent to help close development. This doesn't mean it's almost finished, because they were hiring some roles like someone to animate some melee attacks and stuff like that, and people to help out with lighting. So it's not finished, but they're on the way to closing the development. So it might even make it to come out this year.
Oh
hopefully.
My god, if it came out this year, I'd be so excited. I can't wait for that.
I think
game.
it's guaranteed that it's going to come out for the PS4, which I'm thankful for, because I don't want to be rushing around to get a PS5.
And am I right in thinking that Sony are still dodging E3, so we won't have any more of...
Yeah, so Sony have made this decision to not turn up to E3 this year, which I can kind of see why, because they've only got this, Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding coming out. The PS5 is on the horizon, but obviously they won't have anything to show at E3. So I think because Sony put on a really good show every single year, I think rather than come back and put on a mediocre show, they're going to wait till next year and surprise everyone. So also with The Last of Us 2, performance capture has been completed, so they've finished filming all of Joel and Ellie's scenes. All it takes now is to just put on the finishing touches, I think.
And it's going to be a very good game. If it's anything like the first one, which I've not had the joy of playing all the way through yet, but I've had the joy of playing bits and pieces. If it's anything like the first one, Sony gamers are in for a treat. Now our gaming section this week is basically full to the brim of Sony, because Jess is a big fan of Sony and has done a lot of her research, and there's something to do with Sony about adaptations.
Yeah, Sony have announced that they've got plans to adapt more of their games into films. This came right after Pikachu Detective did quite well, so they were like, we're gonna have some of that, because Sony also own a film production film studio. Sony Studios, they are going to be releasing it all into their own studio, because usually what happens is obviously a game company has to go into collaboration with a film studio, but obviously Sony don't have to do that. They've already got it all covered. So we definitely know they're doing an Uncharted film. It's going to have Tom Holland playing a young Nathan Drake. I'm not sure where in production that is or when it's going to come out, but that was announced ages ago. Sony have said they were inspired by Marvel because of how well Marvel has done of creating their own universe, and Sony want to have some of that. So, I thought now would be a good time to talk about the game adaptation films that are actually in the works and we don't know where they are. So there's a Gears of War, which was announced in 2016. Don't know where that is or when it's coming out. You've got 2 Call of Duty films potentially coming out. They're being the first one's been directed by the Sicario 2 director, and I haven't heard anything from the second one. What do you guys think about this?
I don't feel optimistic for these films. I don't think they'll do anywhere near as well as the Pikachu ones. They're games. You play them for the action. You play them for the ability to wield a weapon and, go around these extensive maps, fighting for victory. I don't feel as films they're going to have the same effect, because I don't know about Gears of War, but Call of Duties in the past just have had great stories, but mainly people play them for the online.
Sony have said the reason why they've suddenly had a change of heart is because they believe now that the problem that game films have had in the past is that the people making them haven't played the games themselves, whereas they've said these days a lot of the people making films are also gamers. So it's got a better chance of being a success. A Rainbow Six film is coming out. Actually, no, 2 Rainbow Six films are coming out. They've going to star Michael B. Jordan, and they're going to be adapted straight from Tony Clancy's books. Got a Borderlands film coming out. The Division, which is being done by the Deadpool 2 director David Leitch, is going to have Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain in it. Any of you guys played The Division?
No, I haven't. I've seen clips of it.
Yeah.
I've played like bits and pieces, but I never actually fully played through it. But I've heard it's an okay game. But I never know what to think about these game into film things, because some have worked, some haven't.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of games that I love that just didn't work out. Assassin's Creed tried to make it into a film, and it just didn't really work. And there's not a great history of it, so.
I feel typically it works better the other way around, films going into games. I feel that there's been a history more so of that succeeding than games into films. But
I have got to disagree. I don't think there has been any kind of can anybody think of a decent game from film?
I was just being generic with like the Harry Potters and stuff, because they always sell to kids.
The Harry Potter games the Lego games are amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's the only
Star Wars
time
games.
that's worked.
The Star Wars games weren't bad, but they're not directly from the films. They're more from the Star Wars lore. There's not really a direct Episode 3 game. Like the Lego games were more based on the stories, and other things like Battlefront was just from the lore. It wasn't really based on the story. It had a separate story that they say is canon, but it didn't. It only includes some of the things. But no, I mean, I can't really think, but. Games into films are always a bit of a risk, and none have really super paid off for me. Some have been alright, but I can't really think of any that I was like, wow, finally, I wanted that. Personally, I liked the World of Warcraft film because I was a massive World of Warcraft nerd when I was a kid. But
I completely forgot that even happened.
I was excited thinking there were going to be more films out. I didn't think it was that bad. I liked that film, but
yeah.
That's it for me.
Anyway, speaking about them not being that successful, Resident Evil is being rebooted. I don't know how to feel about this, because I absolutely adore the Resident Evil games, absolutely despise the Resident Evil films. So even the first one, which a lot of people say is okay, I hated it. Just the guy making the films just didn't get the games at all. So that's being rebooted, and coincidentally Monster Hunter is getting a film adaptation, but it's being done by the guy who directed the Resident Evil films. Can you believe who directed the Resident Evil films? It was Paul Anderson. Paul W.S. Anderson. Little journalism joke there, because our lecturer is called Paul Anderson. And that's going to have Mila Jovovich, who stars in the Resident Evil films, and Ron Perlman, who is that the old Hellboy?
Yeah, Ron Perlman. Oh, big up Ron Perlman. He was in one of my favourite TV series, Sons of Anarchy. Yeah, I would big up that TV series. Anyone needs to watch that.
Yeah.
I like Ron Perlman. Great actor.
And finally, we've got the Metal Gear Solid film. I've seen a few playthroughs of the Metal Gear Solid games. Every time, I have no idea what on earth is going on. It's Hideo Kojima. What can you do? That's being done by Jordan Vogt Roberts, who directed Kong Skull Island, and this one's the winner because it's actually got a script that has been finished, so this might actually come out.
Of all the things that we talked about, I want to hate Halo film, man? Where's Master Chief? Where's
Yeah.
the bad boy CGI Alien Covenant Halo film?
I'm still so bitter over BioShock. That was going to be directed by Guillermo del Toro, and fun fact is, what's it called? Guillermo del Toro's last film. We went to go and see it at the cinema.
Oh gosh, I really can't remember. Bear with us, we'll have a look.
But yeah, that was the leftover ideas for BioShock, and all the way through that film, I was just thinking, God, this could have been a BioShock film.
The one film series that I'm surprised that has never actually become a thing, Grand Theft Auto films. I mean, come on. It could make any genre of film. It could be a good action film. It could be a good
TV show.
It could be a good comedy. Can you imagine a film like with Franklin, Michael, and Trevor?
Yeah.
That could be such a good comedy. There's so much potential, but obviously getting the patents from Rockstar, getting the licensing for the characters, getting the voice actors, I reckon they cost a fair bit. Could be quite difficult. The film we went to see was The Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. That was that was the leftover ideas of Guillermo del Toro's BioShock film. What a waste. Anyway, we're going to have to move on very quickly because we've been talking for years.
We've been talking about Game of Thrones for about 20 years. So, PS5 developments was what we wanted to talk about. And I believe that they've used Spider-Man for this. Is that right?
Yeah, they've done a little show screening. I don't know who this was to because I just kind of skimmed over this story. I don't want to know anything about the PS5 until they've actually got the specs for it out. Because what they did was they played Spider-Man on the PS5 compared to the PS4 and just compared like how it runs, which I don't get because it's a PS4 game, so it's going to run about as well as The Last of Us Remastered did for the PS4, so really well. So the what surprised everyone was the load time was really fast. It had loaded within about a second. I'm not that bothered about load times, to be honest. I don't mind waiting those extra 10 seconds for the game to come on. I don't get why people are so impatient, but there you go. So yeah, we're going to move on to film now.
No, Batman.
Robert Pattinson has been cast as Batman in Matt Reeves' Batman.
Official?
I don't know. I think he's like the very top idea now. He's definitely up there. I don't think it's set in stone yet. I love Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I think he's got such a bad rep. He's got such a bad rep after Twilight, and no one likes him. But yeah, I don't know what to think. I've always been really, really nervous when they cast Batman's, because he's like probably the most loved superhero.
Yeah.
Not for me, but for everyone. And it's always such a big decision. Is that for the Batman film?
Yes, that is. And
that's supposed to be in the DC universe. That isn't really a DC universe because it's terrible.
It's just fallen to bits. Anyway, the villains have been announced. We're going to have Penguin and Catwoman as the main villains. And then it's going to feature the Riddler. To be honest, I would have preferred if the Riddler had been the main villain.
Yeah, I mean... I love the Riddler. I loved him. He's one of my favourite Batman villains, other than the Joker, obviously.
I find it really hard to take Penguin seriously.
Yeah, me too.
It's just a fat guy in a tuxedo.
I mean, they did him quite well in Gotham in the TV series, which just ended, but... Yeah, I mean,
trying to make Penguin
cool. The thing is, there's endless amount of Batman villains that you could use. It's just doing them correctly. It's like Spider-Man. He has about 1,000,001 different people he fights, but just doing them correctly is the important thing.
Anyway, Matt Reeves has got quite a good filmography. He did War and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He did Let Me In, which I really liked, the American adaptation of the Swedish horror film. He also did Cloverfield, which, you know, let's just forget about that one.
10 Cloverfield Lane was a great film, but Cloverfield 1...
If you want to make yourself sick, watch Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, doing a very skim over this very quickly. John Wick Chapter 3 came out this week. It's done very, very well in cinema.
The box office.
Yeah, and it's had amazing reviews. Originally thought to be a trilogy. Nope. It's going to have a sequel.
I loved it. I've seen it. It's amazing. The action sequences in John Wick are incredible. Keanu Reeves is everything. And you literally are sitting there for about 5 minutes before the blood starts happening. Honestly, there were people walking out the cinema because it was too much. It was hilarious. Bless her. This old guy is taking his who's clearly most likely his wife. This lovely old lady to a film night, going, "Oh, come on, hon, let's go to a film night." Taking her to John Wick. Spoiler alert: some guy gets stabbed in the eye 5 seconds in. She's like, "Nope, too much." And bless her, she walks out and it's like, "No, she's had enough." People. It takes a strong stomach to watch that John Wick film. It was a great film, and I thought it was going to be a trilogy, but the way it ended, everyone knew it was going to be there was going to be a fourth one, and it's obviously now been confirmed, and I can't wait. I love that series.
Yeah, so it was announced in quite a unique way. Lionsgate sent a text out to all its fans saying John Wick is Fall's coming out in 2021. So.
Yeah, that's a homage to the film. Because I don't know if anyone's seen John Wick, but in the thing he basically becomes wanted. So a text is sent out to everyone's phone saying he is the number one target in the world. He's got like a $15 million bounty on his head.
I'm not surprised. He's like a one-man army.
Exactly. And funny enough, nope, spoiler alert, they still don't kill him because he's John Wick.
So like Jess says, we need to move on relatively quickly. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is back on our radar again.
Yeah, we had another trailer yesterday. I'm really looking forward to this. Any of you guys Quentin Tarantino fans?
I've seen a couple of his films, probably not as much as you, Jess, in terms of a fan. And I don't know much about this film, so...
I was going to say, as for me, I love Kill Bills. Kill Bills all the way.
So it's got an absolutely phenomenal casting. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Al Pacino, Kurt Russell, Margot Robbie, a few others on top of that. Yeah, even Harry Petit in the studio is nodding his head at that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's right. Everyone keeps on saying it's about the Charles Manson murders. It is not. It's set in the same time as the Charles Manson murders. In the same city, so it's just going on around them. It's not about them.
Yeah, this triggers Jess every time. Jess gets triggered by this. She just doesn't. She's sick and tired of people telling the wrong explanation about the film.
So it's about Leo and Brad. Leo's a actor and Brad is his stuntman, and basically they're in the 1980s Hollywood, and it's slowly changing around them. They don't recognize it anymore. It's just about that. It looks loads of fun. It's a Quentin Tarantino film, so it's going to be fun. And yeah, that comes out on the 14th of August in the UK. Annoyingly, this is 3 weeks after it's released in the USA. That's infuriating, but I'll just let that go.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast on the day of release, on the Wednesday, I've got something you can do tomorrow, because the Terminator Dark Fate trailer the first trailer for it is being released tomorrow, and Jess is going to give you all the info you need.
I'm not looking forward to this just because I don't want to look forward to this because of the bad rap that all the Terminator films have had after the second one. They've, in my personal opinion, they've all been terrible after the second one. But yeah, that trailer's being released tomorrow. James Cameron is producing it, I believe. I can't remember who's directing it, but they've got all the old cast back. It's supposed to be quite good, but I'm just gonna wait and see.
Yeah, well, I'm really nervous for that film.
Yeah.
Very, very nervous. I'm a big Terminator fan. The first, obviously, two were amazing. Since then, it's just been a massive pile of meh.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of Linda Hamilton in her character. Oh, she looks amazing.
She looks great.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see all the old characters back, and I really hope it's something good. I think everything crossed for that film.
And finally, we go on to the world of music and Eurovision. Britain have absolutely ruined it. We've come last.
Yeah, we did quite well.
The Netherlands won this year, so congratulations to them. I guess it's nice to not have Russia win. So the Netherlands won. We finished behind Australia, which is a bit strange because they're not even in Europe. But yeah, we came last. Ever since then, Michael Rice, who was our singer, has come out and has actually blamed it on Brexit. And the BBC have done articles as well saying... is Brexit to blame? Michael's told The Sun, I always knew I was going to come in this position because of Brexit. Do you know what? If it was Gary Barlow or Elton John, they still would have probably come last too.
That's a bold statement considering
I love
his
that
song
so
was...
much. He's definitely not. He's such a sore loser.
He's definitely not bitter, is he?
I will just point out, Michael Rice, if you don't know who he was, he's featured on The X Factor before. I believe he's featured on The Voice as well. And the way that we choose our singer for Eurovision is basically we find 6 random acts off the street who are quite good, who've got a little bit of talent but aren't signed on anywhere. They go up against each other with the same song, 2 versus 2 versus 2. And then whoever wins those rounds goes into a final. We pick a winner from there. So Michael Rice got in. I believe third place was an Essex boy called Jordan Clark. His song Freaks was really, really good. That's on Spotify. I think we should have chosen him, but maybe I'm being biased because of Essex. But yeah, maybe. I mean,
I think the problem with the song was that it's really British. It sounds like a British pop song, and I think if you're going to appeal in Eurovision, it's got to be a bit more like universal sounding.
it's got to be a bit out of the box,
Yeah.
but not as far as Iceland, who did like black metal and did also a political protest, which I believe is the first time that there's actually been a political protest in Eurovision. If you don't know, it's meant to be non-political, so apparently Iceland are going to be sanctioned for that.
Can we just not turn up to Eurovision next time
Can
to save
Can
us
we just
the...
send like Geoffrey the Milkman? I mean, we'd have just
Yeah.
as much chance anyway. Also, just two more bits of news before we go. Slipknot, Unsainted, new song out now. There's a new mystery percussionist. They've got new masks as well, which has sent the metal world into an absolute frenzy. The music video is really jolly good for that as well.
The National also have a new album out.
The National have got a new album out.
I feel like they're releasing albums all the time.
They're releasing albums all the time, but it's a good time for them to release albums because obviously they'll be performing in Hyde Park
Yeah.
with Florence Welch, Florence
So,
and the Machine.
Yeah, this week's the National album should be quite
This week,
good.
yeah, I'm sure we'll have another national album for you next week. And the one last thing I will do, very good friends of mine, Charlie Coben, Elmer, they're in a band called Versa. They've released their debut single called Act Natural. Really jolly good, so give that a listen on any of your streaming platforms.
I'm also going to a music festival this weekend.
Oh, which one are you going to?
It's called Slam Dunk Festival. It basically is a pop punk / like rock kind of festival. It's not big, but I went last year and had a great time. So I'm going again this year. So I thought I'd quickly give that a plug.
Who's there this year? Because I know you normally
All Time Low
All Time
are their
Low
biggest
there.
headliner. That's the biggest headliner this year. A couple of other bands that I'm not too familiar with, but All Time Low is the big one.
Who did you have last year? Didn't you have Sum 41 last year?
Bowling for Soup were there 2 years ago.
Bowling for Soup.
Good Charlotte were there last year.
Oh.
So yeah, they've got good pop punk like bands at the top. Their headliners always usually quite good. So I'm excited about that. That's Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to the Sunday one in Hatfield because the Saturday one is in Leeds. But I'm looking forward to that. And a couple of like little movie things I thought I'd chuck in there. Don't know if you talked about it last week, but the It Chapter 2 trailer was terrifying.
Yeah,
and
we
I
definitely
can't
talked
wait
about
to
that.
watch that.
Yeah.
And also, Avengers Endgame is almost beating Avatar. It's
Oh, of
$150 million behind it now. It's on 2.6 billion, and Avatar is on 2.78. So it is about $150 million behind, and I've got everything crossed that Avengers Endgame smashes Avatar out of the park.
10 years later, and it's finally being dethroned.
Yeah, I don't even know how Avatar did that well, to be honest. Like, we've spoken about this before. I don't know how it did that well.
3D.
Yeah, James Cameron was very crafty with that.
So, yeah.
I think that'll do us for this week. A slightly longer one than usual. Really hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you to Mac for coming on again, and I'm
No
sure
worries.
Mac will return soon. And even if he's not on next week, we'll let you know if he enjoyed Slam
I think
Dunk.
we were going to invite HK and Rhiannon back next week. They've been clawing at the door.
So you can have 4 of us on next week if I don't get kicked off. That's
Yeah.
a really special treat. Come on.
So, yeah, that was episode 9 of the Entertainment Room. Oh, it's the 10th anniversary.
Hey.
Next week, episode 10.
I'll bring a balloon.
Yeah, we'll have balloons and...
Cake.
Yeah,
that you
cake.
can't eat. Shout out to Harry for producing. Great
Yeah.
job.
He's been a really good producer, he has, and he's made the podcast even better.
It's going to sound great.
So there we go. I think that'll do it. Thank you very much to Mac, to Harry, to Jess, to me, and most importantly, to you for listening.
Thank you very much.